Hi folks, it's Rob Flux here from Property Developer Network, coming to you for yet another one of our Sunday sessions. And this time I have a very special guest, Kylie Walker. So Kylie is the coach inside our Property Development Formula program. So hi Kylie.
Hey Rob, great to be here.
Thank you. And today we are talking about the killer traits of mega successful property developers. The topic is quite handy in that you and I are quite fortunate enough to be sitting in the front row seat running our Property Development Formula program, watching a lot of our students go from not doing much at all the way through to being absolute rock stars in the property development space. And so what we thought we would do is share some of the wisdom that we see, that we A, impart on people, and B, see which people take that on and run with it, and I guess give people the right mindset that they need to actually achieve in this field. So what do you reckon? We take these guys for a trip?
Yeah, and it's a really privileged position that we sit in, where we get to see the behind the scenes view and see the variety of experiences that people have in this type of environment. So I feel very blessed to be here and to be part of it.
As do I. So why don't we start firstly, I guess you're the coach and I'm the mentor. Why don't we start with a little bit of a definition, firstly, of a coach versus a mentor, because we're one of the few programs out there that have both a coach and a mentor. Now, I have a very simplistic definition, but I know that there's a lot more detail to it. But as coach, your role is pretty much to get people to take action. And as mentor, my role is pretty much to make sure that it's the right action when that happens. But it's the getting them to take action part that is a little bit more to this than what's sitting under the surface, isn't it?
It is. So I find that a lot of people come to this program, or a lot of people have heard of coaching, but they don't actually know what coaching is. So some people think that a coach is someone that goes rah, 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 and motivates you and tries to get you feeling pumped up, and then you're going to do some stuff. When in actual fact, a well-trained coach does so much more than that. So I've got lots of qualifications, done lots of training. So when a client comes to me and I ask them, what is it that you'd like to focus on today? I'm listening out for what they've said, but I'm also listening out for the things that they don't say. I'm listening out to work out whether the problem that they have right now is whether it's a problem with their environment and what's going on for them, whether it's they don't have enough information or they need more information, or whether it's limiting beliefs, or they're hitting some personal blocks, or whether they're hitting their own emotional brick walls, or there's some emotional baggage from the past that's stopping them from moving forward. So that's one aspect of coaching. And then there also is, for those high performers and those achievers that are getting some great results, is coming to the session and going, okay, where are you at right now? And where would you like to get to? How can we help you to improve the results that you're getting? So is it setting KPIs for you? Do we need to measure what you're doing in a different way? So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, but I'm just seemingly having a chat with someone.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to apologize to our lovely audience. I am getting the start of a cold, so it looks like my eyes are watering, which they are. So I will, and I promise it's not the COVID. I've gone and had the test, so it is not that. But I will be muting myself and blowing my nose from time to time, so my humble apologies. But you're right, Kylie. It's about what is happening under the covers, and it's not always what's happening in their property space. It's other things in their environment and in their life that are sometimes, I guess, the roadblocks or the anchors that are actually holding them back. But equally, it's the things in their extracurricular life that are the enablers for, I guess, their property journey. And so it's really important to get that balance.
And often the problem that they think is the problem is not actually the problem. So a coach asks us questions to determine what the real problem is. So, yeah. And
get them to come to that realization themselves. That's the most important thing. So
yeah, I don't have all the answers. I'm just trained at asking great questions and hearing what's being said, as I said, and what's not being said. So it's not my role to fix your problems or to tell you what to do. It's to ask you the questions so that you can delve in deeper within yourself and we come up with some stuff together.
Yep. And then my role as the mentor, my role is to, once you have activated them and they're actually doing the things that they need to be doing, my role is to make sure that we can fine tune them and point them in the right direction and harness that energy as efficiently and effectively as possible to get them progressing forward. So that's kind of how the two of us bounce off of each other. And so what I do see, and I was quite fortunate to be in one of our mentoring sessions, and we did an around the grounds the other day, and I think we had 19 or 20 of our students announce. We did a check-in who's actually in a deal at the moment. 19 or 20 of them were actually in a deal, and some of them were in anywhere up to 2 or 3 deals. And so we're quite privileged to be sitting in the front row and watching that sort of thing happen. But a lot of people outside of the environment don't see the work that actually goes in under the covers, and they think there's a lot of luck that sits with these guys. Oh, you're so lucky that you got that deal. I don't think they realize the effort that goes in under the covers to actually make that happen. And so my definition of luck is where opportunity meets preparation. And I can assure you that I guess the students in our program are doing everything humanly possible to get as prepared as they can for those opportunities when they present.
And I
so
actually
that said,
think, sorry, I was just gonna cut in there and say, I actually think it can be slightly insulting if you say to someone who is achieving great results that they're so lucky. Because if you truly knew how much work goes into getting results, into getting deals, into getting projects up and running, there's so many things that can be hard, but also things can be easy as well. But when you say, oh my gosh, you're so lucky, it's like, you know what, before you're inclined to say that to someone, take a step back and go, what have they had to put in place? What have they had to do in all of their time in order to get to where they're at right now?
Which leads us to the very first discussion point we're talking about for what are the killer traits of our successful property developers. That is that they recognize there are no shortcuts. They recognize that it is hard work and they need to do the hard work in order to actually achieve the outcomes. They need to understand it within an inch of its life. They need to become area experts. They need to become strategy experts. They need to become counsel experts. And when they combine all of those things together, that's when they start to get success. And so what looks like, quick site analysis and that sort of thing at the tail end, it's the 6 or 9 months of lead up that goes into that to lock in your strategy and lock in your skills and lock in, your area expertise and understand what your council rules are and all that sort of stuff that then allow you to make those really quick decisions. And it's that prep work that goes into it.
And I think a lot of people look at their life and perhaps they've had some setbacks or they've reached an age where they go, oh my gosh, I'm running out of time to get the financial resources that I want, to create that financial foundation that I want. So they start looking for the magic pill or the quick pill, the magic wand or things like that. But there really isn't one. It's just, if you try to shortcut, you're actually going to do yourself a disservice in the long run, which I guess leads us into our next point, doesn't it, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is that education comes in all forms. Now, I'm quite fortunate. I've been in property for approaching 34 years now. And, I bought my first house at 18 and first investment property at 21 and, started really early. But what I can say that after 34 years, I am still learning every single day. And so it's about having a hunger for thirst and recognizing that education comes from all sorts of people and all sorts of places. I guess there's formal education, like the programs that we actually run, but there's education in watching what your peers are doing. There's, talking to your consultants. There's running your deals and learning from the deal itself. And there's inevitably learning from your mistakes. And it is uncanny how much we learn from our mistakes, because it's those things that hurt us the most. And so those lessons tend to be reinforced really strongly.
And I heard a line a while ago, which has always encouraged me to keep investing in my personal development programs that I do, I guess, in the coaching space, particularly, as well as property. But that is, you either pay for education or you pay for the mistakes that you make along the way. So one way or another, you're going to pay somehow. We just want to help to minimize mistakes where we can, but you don't get the results without any price that you pay to get there.
No, correct. And there are people who will joint venture with existing developers and become a money partner and shadow them. That's a fantastic way to learn. you're sitting in the back seat, so you don't have your hands on the wheel, but you're certainly learning from it. And I can tell you that when your money's in the game, you're going to be paying really close attention to it, or at least you should be. But there's, going and doing your own deals. There's paper trading. I guess there's, all sorts of ways. So education and the thirst for knowledge to continually strive to learn more and more every single day.
Exactly.
Next one on our list is that I guess the mega successful property developers are self-motivated. They don't need as much as we would like, they don't need as much as others to be kicked in the bum and say, get up and do this. They are already got their own drivers as to why they're getting up, and they'll get up early and they'll put their effort in and they'll push themselves to actually achieve the outcomes that they're actually wanting to achieve. And because they are going to that sort of effort, they'll actually back themselves. They'll trust their instincts because they've honed and refined them through that practice and repetition.
And they've decided that once they've made that decision that they want to create the results that they're getting in their life, they're going to take the action that you need to take. There's no ifs or buts. It's, what, I've got to get these results because the cost to me of not doing so is too great.
Now, so speaking of taking action, I could be wrong with the who here, but I think it was actually Confucius who actually says that education without action, knowledge without action, I think is what he said, is no knowledge at all. Now, I would put a very slight spin on that and say that knowledge with action then becomes wisdom, because then you start to learn what is the outcome of that action, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. And wisdom is really what we seek. Education all by itself, there is, it's great to do, 3, 4, 5 courses out there, but if you're not actually in the ring, getting yourself dirty and sweaty and getting into the fight, then there's no point actually doing the programs.
And it's taking the action even when it's uncomfortable. So if it was comfortable for you, you wouldn't be growing, you wouldn't be stretching. So most of the time when you're doing something new in whatever area of life it is, but in this instance, when it's property development, it's going to be uncomfortable. So you're going to feel like you don't know enough. You're going to feel like there's all these blind spots that you don't have. But it's about, as we touched on before, getting the education that you need from whatever source you feel is right for you. And then it's taking that action no matter how you feel. So it's showing up. It's making decisions quickly and then changing your mind slowly. Like that's one of the key traits of successful people.
And well, I would paraphrase that a little further. So it's swift and decisive action. Okay, so yep. the ability to actually make a decision and actually execute it. Now, what is really important, and you said change your mind slowly, what is really important is to monitor the outcome of the results of that action. So you're going to see whether or not the action you took is a good outcome or a bad outcome very, very fast. And so if you are able to take swift and decisive action, if it's great outcome, then you just keep on doing it. If it's less than great, then that swift and decisive action means that you have the ability to correct that as quick as you can without, doubling back on your original decision. It's really, how do I actually tweak what I've done here as opposed to, go back and do it again.
When people live in the land of indecision, I think that can cost you a fortune. So whenever you're being overly indecisive and not making decisions and not taking action, then my suggestion is to look at that opportunity cost of doing that. So I know people that have stayed stuck for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, like still wanting to take that action and spinning their wheels. So it's so important that you can be self-aware to know where you're at, because the longer you want to get these results and the longer it takes for you to take the action that you need to take, whatever that is, the longer it takes for you to get those results, and it's the opportunity cost. I guess that's the main point I want to make.
And many people have said this before, but I'll reinforce it. No action is actually an action in itself. Okay, so you know, that the inability to take an action is effectively making a choice that you're actually not going to take action. Now, what I would like to touch on here is the etymology or the meaning of the word decision and decide. A lot of people may be interested in the differences between them and where it actually came from. So I guess the prefix comes from Latin word decidere, and the suffixes, if I get those the right way around, scission and side. So scission, as in incision, is to cut, and side, as in pesticide, suicide, is to kill. So the difference between a decision and deciding, so a decision is when you actually draw a line in it, and when you decide, that means you kill off any other alternatives to actually move forward. And I think a lot of people make decisions, but a lot of people don't decide. And I'd like to encourage people to think about the differences between those and go, well, I think I've made a decision, but unless you actually act on that and leave all the other options sitting behind you, then you haven't really acted on that in good faith.
Yep. So the next point, there we go, is people take personal responsibility for their results. So it's taking responsibility for the results that you are getting, and it's also taking responsibility for the results that you're not getting. So you need to really take a good hard look at yourself, like looking in the mirror and going, what's showing up for me right now? So what am I responsible for? What am I not doing that's going to get me the results that I want? Well,
and it's the results that you aren't getting that is really the one that most people fail to own. Now, in reality, it doesn't matter what the world does to us. We are the only ones responsible for the actions that we take, the meaning that we take from things, and the actions that we take for any action that actually happens to us in the world. So if we don't take responsibility for those actions and the meaning that we give to those actions, then what is the point? Okay, it's very easy for us to be victims of what this bad thing happened to me, as opposed to taking responsibility and say, well, actually, yes, it did happen, but this is the meaning I'm going to give it. Okay, so is that something that's going to get me to curl up in the fetal position and stop and whimper and complain that the world is against me, or is that going to spur me on and inspire me to go, okay, well, I'm going to prove them wrong and I'll go a little bit harder. Right, that personal responsibility, I think, is a critical one.
And this leads into asking for help when you're stuck. And I don't mean to sound stereotypical here, it may, but I find that a lot of men find it difficult to reach out and ask for help. So there is absolutely no value in you being an island, thinking that you need to be on your own, working out your problems. So when you hit a brick wall, when you notice that you're stuck, reaching out for help actually takes a lot of strength. Being vulnerable and asking for help, it takes a lot of strength. There's a lot of power in that. And so I would love to encourage anyone here, if you're stuck in any area of your life, reach out for help, and also be very discerning about who you get help from. So if you're wanting help in the property development space, then perhaps you're reaching out to a coach or to a mentor or to a peer who understands where you're at. They understand the journey. Perhaps they've walked the path already that you're walking down. So it's important to know who you go to for what help when you're stuck, because you want to ensure that the help that you get supports you on your journey and doesn't encourage you to step back when really you're wanting to stretch and step into goals. And you're at that point that you could be easily influenced either way. Sometimes we're on that hero's journey. It's like, oh, this is a bit hard right now, and I think I'm going to step back. It's like you want to be going to that person who's going to encourage you to keep moving forward and have the tools and resources to support you to keep moving.
Well, and talking about that, I guess it's very important to understand who to ask help from, because quite often, if we do get to a position where we ask help, sometimes we're asking the wrong people, and I'm not meaning that in a negative or derogatory sense, but you've got to be clear in the person that I'm actually asking for this assistance. are they likely to be a supporter of my property development journey, or are they somebody who's probably against it? Because the guidance and advice they're going to give you is going to be slightly different. Now, I say that because as humans, we're actually a herd pack, okay? And when we are in our herd, it's people of a like mind that tend to flock together. So when you're in and around friends and family and that sort of thing, if they are not in the property development journey, then when you start to do property development, you're going to appear to be the black sheep to them. And it looks like you're straying away from the herd. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to protect you, and they're trying to draw you back into the herd by saying that property is, that's a bad thing. Okay. But if you find your property development, I guess, friends and colleagues and peers, that herd wants to encourage you to come into that space. And so when you start to drift away and not do property development, they draw you back in and say, hey, why aren't you actually doing that? So really important to make sure that you've got the right herd around you, and that you are asking help from the people that are actually motivated in that space themselves, and are going to give you the kind of advice that you're actually looking for, not the answer that you're after. And they're very different.
That's it. And then that at the herd leads into the community. So it's really important. Successful people believe in community. Successful developers, they want to build their community of like-minded people. So this is the herd that Rob was just talking about. So they mix with the like-minded people. You become like the people that you spend most time with. So if you want to become a successful developer, hang out with successful developers or people that are on that path, and give back as much as you can. So as you move along in that journey and you start to get those results and you're getting that success, and then you start giving back to other people who are just starting out. And that's very, very rewarding for everybody who does that. I don't know one person who has said it's not ultimately fulfilling to be able to help someone else who's on the path with them, but just a few steps behind. It's so important, and so such an important role that you play.
And that community, I can't stress, I guess, the impact of that's had on my life in particular. And I'll share this little journey of mine. Many of you have heard that I started this as 5 mates around my kitchen table, all just trying to help each other's projects out. But what I don't say very often is, in those early days, I was very inward about that, and was very much about how do I progress my journey. And it was all about me. But as I started to help other people and see them get success, and recognize that, there's an abundance of opportunities out there, and that they were all equally invested in me actually achieving success. When I started to see that, that's when my world started to turn around. And at that point, I went, okay, well, I can actually give more, because I know that it will come back to me when I need it. I don't need it to be, I'll give you a favor because I need a favor back next. It was, well, I'll just give a favor, and then that person can give someone else a favor. They'll give someone else, and maybe sometime in the future, I will get it, and people will just know that, because I've been helping others, then I will be helped as and when I need that. So that paying it forward and helping each other, that came to me, I'm going to say, when we got to about the 15 or 20 people mark, that epiphany hit me to say, actually, it's not about me. It's about, if I can help them, that's going to help me to achieve much, much faster. And, I think we got to about 50 odd people before we went public. But it was, in the early days that was, that realization came to me.
And it's also about having an intention for building relationships for the longer term. So as Rob said, it's not about who can I get from what right now. It's about how can I build these long-term relationships with people that we can serve each other over the long term. That's very fulfilling for each of us. And it's building relationships with peers. So in your community of like-minded developers, it's building relationships with your consultants. It's building relationships with those people that you're going to need on your team if you're in this for the long term, and you'd like to think that you are. So you're building those really quality relationships so that people want to work with you. Like, you want to work with them, you find quality people. And once you find quality people, really focus on maintaining and building that relationship, because you never know where opportunities are going to come from. So I hear people finding deals that are brought to them because they've built great relationships with some of their professionals, people in the field that are looking for deals. They know, hey, this person's looking for this kind of deal. So it's all about just building those relationships and paying it forward, because you never know when those rewards are going to start coming back to you.
Absolutely. And I was witness to this just yesterday. We were running our Melbourne meetup, and in that community, we always kick on for social drinks afterwards. And afterwards, as we're kicking on, I was witness to 3 separate opportunities where potential joint ventures were being formed because everyone was actually looking after the best interests of everyone else in that process. And people were saying, hey, go speak to so and so on the other side of the room, and sending people over to say that person's going to be the one to actually help you. And it's that that relationship building and paying it forward, that is just gold, and that will live with you as a mantra for lifetime.
And it takes away that competitive feeling. So some people start off going, I don't want to tell anyone what area I'm looking in or what deals I'm looking for, because they might get my deals. And it really doesn't work that way. It's like building relationships with people. It's about having an abundance mentality. It's about being open to the opportunities that are out there rather than trying to be closed off and insular.
And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail, because it's a common myth that comes up, is to say, well, once I start to do the same strategies as some of the other people, that all of a sudden we're going to be competing for each other's deals. And so I want to go through just a little bit of a math equation almost to actually play out the fact that the reality behind that is so fundamentally flawed, it's not possible. So firstly, there are many, many, many different development strategies. And so each one of you are probably doing something slightly different. That's the first part. Second part is that even if you're doing something the same, then chances are you've got different price points. And so you might be shopping in different areas. And then if that's the case, even if you're shopping in the same sorts of areas, then you're getting into the market at different points in time because you're on different parts of your journey. Then even if that was the case, then if there truly was a competitive tension at one point in time, then one of you will get into the deal, and then that person's money's all tied up. And so now the market becomes free for the next person. And so even if that tension is there, that lack of abundance is there, it's only for this fleeting glimpse, okay? And then all of a sudden the abundance starts to come back again. And so, it's very easy to just go, oh, I don't want to tell anyone about where I'm farming or what I'm farming or why I'm farming. But if you don't, then nobody can actually help you in actually progressing your journey. So, open yourself up, become vulnerable, share your experiences, share your journey, share your pains, and others can then actually step in and actually fill the void and actually help you out.
That's it. I find when I'm coaching people that when they've lost their mojo, the main reason for them losing their mojo is they're no longer connected to their goals and the reason why they want to do this. So if you find that you're starting to feel like, I've lost my motivation, or I've lost my drive, or I've lost my desire, or I don't even know what I'm doing this for anymore, those kinds of thoughts come into your mind, it's really important that you reconnect with your goals. And often people haven't actually even set goals before. So the more defined your goals are, the more specific they are, the more likely you are, firstly, to be motivated to take the action to achieve them. And then the more likely it is that you'll achieve them, because without a goal, how do you even know what you're trying to achieve? It's kind of this funny kind of situation that you're in. And if you don't know why you want to do this, so why is this truly important to you? At the end of the day, most people are doing this. They'll always say because they want to be financially free, but what does that actually mean? At the end of the day, my interpretation is what most people's why is they want to have choice. And so how do you get choice? You have choice ultimately by having the financial resources that you need, whatever level of financial resources that is for you.
And it is this mythical thing about the definition of financial freedom, and it is truly just having enough passive income to pay your debts, okay? Which means that if you've got that passive income to pay your debts, then all your food is paid for, all your fuel's paid for, all your phones are paid for. You can continue to live the lifestyle that you are currently living right now, and not have to go to work. And that is the choice that you're talking about, Kylie. You can say, well, now that I don't have to work, now I get the choice. Do I want to work? And if I want to work, what do I want to work on? And if I don't want to work, what am I going to do? Am I going to spend time with family? Am I going to travel around the world? Am I going to, go to third world countries and help them, I guess, in a more socio-economic type approach? But it's the choice and the ability to actually be able to do that. So that's the definition of financial freedom. But why did people want it? That's the bit that a lot of people really struggle with, actually getting in touch with why do they want that choice, okay? The most common question that we ask people, okay, well, at the end of that financial freedom journey, what are you doing the next day? And it's amazing and uncanny how many people have no idea what they want to do the day after. They've been sold on this, I want to have the big house and I want to have the fancy car and I want to have the lavish lifestyle. They've been sold on that dream, but if they had that dream, they wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yep, agreed.
So the people that come into our program, question number one, when we do our initial kickoff strategy is, why are you here? What is the purpose of this? Because we know that through the journey that they're going to have, they're going to get knocked down so many times it's not funny. And it's only when you're connected to your why will you find a reason to get back up again. And we need people to actually understand that why, be connected with that why, and have that form the basis of the goals that they're actually trying to reach.
And you can use some tools that can help you to stay connected to your goal. So whether that's creating a vision board for you. So I've got one in my office here. Oh, it's just above my screen. So you create those visual tools that you're looking at that reminds you every single day. Every time you're in front of your computer, you're seeing these are the things that are important to me. It's having your goals printed out. Perhaps you have them on a screensaver on your phone, or you have them printed out and they're on the wall in your office somewhere, somewhere you're going to see it all the time. So you want to be setting yourself up that you have these visual reminders. Perhaps you have an alarm that goes off on your phone every day where your goals pop up. There's all these creative ways that you can use the resources around you to help you to stay connected to your goals. It is so important.
There's also two different kinds of goals that I'll touch on. There's push goals and there are pull goals. Okay, so a push goal feels like you're leaning up against a boulder and you're pushing really hard to get that boulder to actually start to work. Okay, and it takes a lot of energy to actually get that happening. And if you don't get the momentum, it's very easy to fall off the wagon. So a lot of people say, I want to lose weight. That's kind of a push goal. I want to lose weight. But instead, if they use a pull goal, they go, well, I want to get healthy so I can spend time with my family. That now is more like a slingshot, okay? And so it drags you along because I guess the actual end goal that you're actually trying to go for, spending time with the family and kicking the footy in the backyard and things like that, that is really the reason. And the losing weight is more a symptom along the way. And it's very important to actually understand whether you've got a push goal or a pull goal and know which one you've got and why it takes so much discipline to actually get past, I guess, that initial point of inertia on those push goals.
And something just popped into my mind there, Rob, about discipline. So I think the most self-loving thing that you can do is to be disciplined to achieve your goals. So to embody that discipline that you need to take the actions that you need to take to get the results that you want. Just thought I'd add a little side comment there.
Absolutely.
One of the other successful traits of successful developers is they focus on their future, not their past. We've all made mistakes in the past. I'm sure everyone who's listening to this has had setbacks along the way. They've had plot twists. I often call the setbacks in my life plot twists because then I can make light of them, but not take away from the learnings that I've achieved. But a lot of people end up staring through the rear vision mirror. If you want to use a car metaphor, they sit there staring through the rear vision mirror instead of looking through the windscreen. So they're looking at their past way more than their future. So where do you need to be looking? If you notice that you're always looking in the past, just think about it. Am I sitting here staring in my rear vision mirror? Where do I need to shift my focus to? We need to shift your focus to the windscreen. You can see way more when you're looking through your windscreen in your car than you can your rear vision mirror.
And one of the symptoms that you'll typically find if you are looking back is that you're looking back with regret or with hatred or with dread or missed opportunities. If only I could have done that. If you find yourself with that sort of language, then chances are you're looking back too much. Instead, you need to draw a line in the sand and go, okay, whatever that bad thing was, it's happened. Now, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to change the future that I've got sitting in front of me? Because the only moment at all that you can actually control is this moment right here, right now. What am I going to do right now? And where do I want that to take me? So if you focus on your future, then the action you take now can take you towards that path.
And this is where a lot of people can actually get really stuck because they're making decisions with their conscious mind, a bit super coachy here, but a lot of the emotions and the disappointment, all that kind of stuff sits in the unconscious mind, and the memories are stored in a different place. So they find that they're finding that it's easy for us to say, hey, you got to move forward and stop looking in the rear vision mirror and look through the windscreen instead. But in reality, that can be a little bit more difficult. And this is where you may need the expertise and the skills of a coach. So whatever coach you go to or whoever you want to go and seek out. But this is where, if you notice that you're constantly looking back, and if you're really stuck in the regret and the disappointment, for some people, they feel a lot of guilt if they've lost money. Some people feel a lot of shame. I've spoken to a few people in our community. I've lost money on deals in the past, made money again, had the whole roller coaster experience. So a lot of people have these really negative feelings that they try to suppress. And whenever you have these emotions, it's because they want to be cleared. There's a part of you that wants to move on from that, but you can't just think your way out of it all the time. So just be self-aware. If you're still, you're taking on what we're talking about today and the suggestion of, hey, focus on moving you forward, focus on the future instead of the past. If you find that you're still getting resistance, then I really recommend you seek out some help to get some support around that, because you'll be amazed what opens up for you from there.
Absolutely. And I guess one of the reasons why we're looking back typically is because we've typically made mistakes or made bad decisions, or something in our life has not really gone to plan. Okay, let me reassure you that that's going to happen. And so what we really want to do, and we touched on it earlier on, like our mistakes are where we actually make our greatest learnings. That's where we actually has a greater impact and a greater meaning to us. So what we want to do is we want to actually manufacture a process where we can fail fast, fail safe, and fail early. Okay. Now that might sound counterintuitive, but if we are failing fast, that means we're making many, many lessons. If we're failing safe, that means we're not losing money, we're not losing deal. And we want to fail early in the process. We don't want to fail at the end of a project. We want to fail right at the very start, while we're at the negotiation stage, while we're at the due diligence stage, or while we're really early in the process. You don't want to fail at the very, very end. And so a lot of the methodology that we teach is trying to manufacture that early process where the mistakes can happen on paper. Okay, I liken it to the Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. Okay, people don't understand why they're doing the wax on and wax off, but after a while, they'll actually recognize that it starts to become a little bit of an instinct, because they've done it so many times that when that particular situation happens, they're just kind of like that every single time. And so, you've got to put yourself in a position where you can actually manufacture that, so that you're going to do that as a paper-based failure. And not in the middle of a deal, which is, a really bad time to fail.
When I see a lot of clients getting stuck in procrastination and analysis paralysis, it's when they don't want to make a mistake. And so again, we look at the opportunity cost. How long are you going to stay stuck for? How long are you just going to continually analyzing the same bit of data, and perhaps deals will slip you by or pass you by because you're not taking the action that you need to take? So it's knowing that you're taking the action that you need to take, and how you may make mistakes along the way, but you're going to learn from those mistakes. And as long as if you're aware of where you're at, if you make decisions fast enough, or if you can correct the course that you're on fast enough, the mistakes won't be as big as what they will be if you take on that ostrich approach, which is I'm going to put my head in the sand for a bit. It's all getting a bit too hard. It's all getting a bit too much. That's when your mistakes become super costly. So if you've got into a deal, hey, and things aren't going quite to plan, and you're finding that perhaps you've made a mistake with your analysis or made a mistake with something, it's like, okay, reach out for that support, because this mistake can be very costly or not so costly depending on the action that you take. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that your future self, and I've actually heard a lot of clients say this, that their mistake was that they didn't start the journey earlier, that they held off too long because fear held them back. So that in itself is a mistake in their mind.
And that said, it's never too late to start, Kylie. It's
Agreed.
Never too late to start.
Agreed, but that's their perception. Yep.
We've got several really good examples of people who've come to us late in life, where I guess they were at the very end of their working career and with limited opportunities sitting in front of them, and they had no choice but to succeed. And those people have a need to get it done as opposed to a want. If you have a need to succeed, it is amazing how you will move heaven and earth to make that happen. But if you want it to succeed, then chances are you'll take the foot off the gas and you won't put all the effort in as hard as you need to go. I see it over and over and over. The thing that stops a great life is the fact that we're already in a good life, and we're just not willing to take the sacrifice to I guess get to where we want to be.
Yeah. So those people that are getting great results that I see, they are solution focused and they're very innovative. So they're always looking at the ways that they can find solutions to things, whether it's solutions to how they manage the data that they're analyzing, whether it's solutions to getting responses back when they're looking for projects. They're looking at, how can I do this better when this thing or this way isn't working for them? How can they streamline the time it's taking them? What systems can they put in place so that it may take a little while to set it up in the beginning, but what systems can they put in place to enable them to have more time, to have more mental headspace, because they don't have as much stuff stored in their head. They've been able to make use of programs and different, tech tools. See, I'm not techie. Tech tools that they could use that can help them get as much stuff out of their head so that then they have the space to be thinking about even more solutions to problems that they see coming up.
Well, I want to touch on that solution-focused, comment. The reason why we need solutions is because as property developers, we are actually problem solvers, okay? We make money by solving problems that other people either don't have the time, don't have the knowledge, don't have the skills, or don't have the ambition to actually achieve. And so Joe Public wants to just turn up and buy the finished product, okay? And so we are the ones who magically create those finished products, but we have to solve a whole bunch of problems in actually getting there. So instead of being afraid of problems, we actually need to embrace problems, okay? We need to firstly hone our skills to recognize the problem. And then when we can recognize the problem, at that point, we can then go, right, who is the best person to actually help me through that? How can I solve it? And how do I solve that best commercially? Okay, and we make money by solving the problem in a commercially minded manner. But the key to it is firstly seeing the problem. I cannot tell you how many times I see somebody bring me a feasibility and say, look, makes lots of numbers. And what I see on the spreadsheet is some adding up and some subtracting, and it looks like a profit on paper. But when I look at the site analysis and I identify the problems on the site, they have missed so many issues and challenges on that particular property that should have made it into the FISO. And so we need to embrace problems, and we need to start looking for and searching for the problems, because it's only when we see them that we can then go, well, who can best solve that? And then how much is that going to cost? That's what then lands into our feasibility. And so being solution focused is firstly about identifying the problem.
Agreed.
And that creative brain side of things that you're talking about with regards to how do we actually solve that, that comes from practice and repetition. That comes from seeing variations of the same problem 4, 5, 10, 20 different ways and seeing that other people will solve that problem differently. That starts to build I guess, an arsenal of opportunities for you. So when you see that problem again, you go, okay, well, I've seen that solved 4 or 5 different ways. And I know that problem, initiative number 3 is the best outcome in that particular instance. Now, a perfect example to highlight this, and if I think about the most simplistic project that we can have actually get out there, would be a 1 into 2 subdivision. When I ask the question, how many ways are there to do a 1 into 2 subdivision? People say, well, there's 2. You create 2 blocks of land and you sell them, or you build 2 homes and you sell them. And you go, well, actually, no. There's actually a ton of different ways, and I think there's 16 different permutations. There's do I knock down the house? Do I keep the house? Do I renovate the house? If the house is relocatable, do I slide the house? Do I sell the house and build on the vacant block of land? Do I sell the vacant block of land? Do I knock down the house and build 2 vacant blocks? Do I knock down the house, sell 1 block of land, pay down the other one, and just build 1 with the balance? And when you start to go through all those different permutations, you go, wow, there's actually so many different opportunities here. It's not funny. And sometimes when you see all those permutations, it's only one of those that will actually make money. And so we need to use that creative brain to start to see and materialize, okay, I am a strategy expert. I am an area expert. I know what the finished product is actually going to sell for. And so if I try some of these permutations, they just aren't going to make commercial sense. And in one area, it might make sense to keep the house. In the next suburb, it might make sense to not keep the house. It might make sense to sell them as vacant blocks of land in one area. It might make sense to sell them as finished homes somewhere else, and so when you start to look at not only what is possible, but also what is the market doing in my little demographic, okay, my subject area expertise, what's happening in my area, what do those things sell for? Only then can your creative brain start to materialize the answer.
Yep. And this leads us into the next point, which I think you're the master of, Rob. So I'll probably let you elaborate on this more. But automating and outsourcing mundane tasks, I often hear comments in the community of like, oh my gosh, how does Rob get so much done? Like, oh my gosh, it just blows my mind. So do you want to elaborate, Rob?
Well, I run 4 businesses, Kylie, and the reason is because I've identified. Firstly, I've learnt how to do it. That's the first part. The second part is I've identified opportunities to say, well, I don't necessarily have to do it every single time myself. I can oversee, overlook, I can outsource, I can automate, and get a whole bunch of things actually done where I have control without necessarily doing the doing. And that initially sounds so counterintuitive, okay? If I do everything, then I get to keep 100% of the profits. The number of people who said, I picked up the paintbrush to do that renovation. I was the one with the hammer. You go, great, you made 100% of the profit, but the project took you 3 months longer because you were on the tools doing it, okay? And instead, what you could have done is pay a builder to do that element, outsource that particular task. Yeah, you wouldn't have made as much money, but let's just say that you paid the builder 20% of your profits. Now you've outsourced that, you made 80% profit, and you've now got those 3 months of free time to then go find the next deal. Okay, and that's the key. If you can then go get your next deal, well, you can have 80% of that one as well. And instead of having 100% of profit, you've now got 160% of profit. And that's the bit that I think a lot of people kind of forget. They get penny rich and pound poor. They're trying to save every single cent. And what they fail to recognize is if I just spend a little bit and pay someone who has more time and more expertise to actually do this, that will actually free up my time, and then I can actually go and add value in ways that only I can do that the others can't. Okay, so always look for opportunities to automate or outsource. If you're doing the same task, same boring, mundane task over and over and over, then the first time you do it, you're learning. The second time, you're proving your methodology. The third time, you should be documenting, and the fourth time, someone else should be doing it. If I'm doing something a fifth or a sixth time, then I'm banging myself on the head going, how did I miss this opportunity to get that outsourced?
Yep, and that's a message that you're continuously sharing with us and spreading to us when we work with you, that what can you automate? What can you do differently? How can you avoid the repetition of doing repetitive tasks?
And we do that very much within our team. So inwardly, inside, I guess, the multiple businesses that I run, it's always about what can we do to outsource and automate tasks and identify those opportunities to say, well, why am I doing this boring, repetitive thing?
Because we want to have the time and space to serve the people that want to connect with us.
Well, yep. Correct. And I'll put in a little equation out to someone. Just imagine the task you're doing takes yourself an hour, and you're doing that, let's just say 4 times a week. So there's 4 hours a week that's actually taking you, but it's every week, ongoing, every single time. In order to automate that, that might take you 10 hours to actually build yourself a process, what they call a standard operating procedure, train someone in how to do that, and then outsource that. So it might take you 10 hours of your time. So effectively, in 2.5 weeks, that will then start to repay itself. Okay, so you'll start to fall behind for that first couple of weeks because you forward spent those 10 hours, but in 2.5 weeks, you've caught up. And then after that, you're in front. And so that task now is just dealt with and done, which now gives you more time to automate the next one. And the more you start to do it, the better you start to get, the more you start to outsource. So very, very powerful if you really want to scale and leverage your business.
Letting go of control. So the final point that I'd like to raise is removing emotion from decisions. So there's a time and place for emotions. Hey, I'm a coach. I work with people and their emotions every single day of the week. Emotions are important. They navigate us to tell us where we need to be focusing and what we need to be focusing on. They're a very, very important tool that we have naturally. But when it comes to property development, you've got to let the numbers do the talking. So when you're in the development space, if you're doing developments and you're in this space and your emotions are running the ship or steering the ship, your experience is going to be this roller coaster, like you're riding all these steep waves all the time. Like you get super excited, then you get really disappointed, and you get really anxious, and you get despondent, and it's this massive wave of emotion. So what's really important is that you can notice and you can realize and understand that there's a time and place for emotions, and doing FISOs, doing like negotiating. You don't want to be highly emotional when you're negotiating. So it's about taking that step back and being able to calm your emotions. And at the end of the day, letting your numbers do the talking, which, Rob will elaborate more on because you're the expert in that space.
Well, and, the first time we get into a deal, we are super pumped and super excited. Yeah, we got this deal. It's a killer deal. And then the reality sets in about how much work you actually have to do. And then the excitement wears off really, really quickly until you get to the end of the project, and then you get payday. Okay. And then the excitement comes back again. And so you have these fleeting moments of enthusiasm during your journey, and a lot of hard work and grunt. As you start to get to deal 2, deal 3, deal 4, the fleeting moments tend to become a little more fleeting as you start to just get in the habit of, okay, this is a process. This is my business. This is, it is truly about the numbers. And then we can start to let go of that, that tight chest of, I'm afraid to pull the trigger and I'm afraid to sign the contract. And you just go, well, it's an opportunity cost right here, right now. This opportunity is sitting in front of me. Is this the deal I want to get me to my next stage of my career? Okay. and that's a real key thing, because a lot of us will take a lot of effort to learn how to become a property developer and do a small scale project. And then once we've done that, and we had to stretch in order to do that, but once we've done that, then we get comfortable in that, and we tend to do the same deal again and the same deal again and the same deal again. And then what we've found is what we've done is we've swapped our day job for our property development job, and we've not actually progressed our career. Instead, what we want to do is we want to start to go, okay, I stretched myself to get into the first deal. Now I want to stretch myself to get into the next deal, and I want it to be just slightly bigger. Reinvest the money that I just got from the last project, reinvest the skills that I just learned, and just go slightly bigger. I'm not talking about massively big, just a little bit bigger. And if you can keep stretching slightly and then stretch slightly and then stretch slightly, eventually you'll be at the point where you're actually doing deals large enough where you can do the magical thing that I talk about, which is to keep your stock as profit, okay? And that's when you start accumulating your financial freedom, passive income that we're actually talking about. And how many properties are you needing to own outright in order to achieve your goals? You want to be working on, well, what size deal do I need to do today to set me up for the deal tomorrow, to set me up for the next deal after that, so that I can actually get that financial freedom, rather than just getting off of one mouse wheel and getting onto another mouse wheel, which is just going round and round that rat race. It's not real fun.
So that really is embodying strategic thinking. That's
Correct.
how I would summarize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it's really important, I think, to be rewarding ourselves as we go, because as we get into a deal, we should be celebrating. Okay, we want to. Whilst we're saying take the emotion out of the transaction, we still want the emotion in the journey. Okay, the emotion in the journey reinforces good behaviors. It reinforces, okay, this is actually getting me to where I'm going. It's a measure and a milestone on that bigger plan. So, celebrate getting into a deal. Celebrate when you've contacted your 10 or 15 agents that you were going to contact this week, whatever your KPI was going to be. Celebrate when you've done your suburb analysis and you've confirmed that this is the area that you want to be locked into for quite some time. Keep finding reasons to celebrate, and turn the bad habits that you've got now, sitting in front of the TV and watching YouTube and watching Netflix and all those sort of things, those bad habits, turn them around to instead be rewards. Okay, so yeah, I can watch one season of my favorite show after I achieve this particular goal. Okay, because I know that when I've achieved that little milestone, that little that I'm rewarding myself for having done really good stuff. And if we can have the self-discipline to not binge watch it until we've actually achieved that milestone, and then it feels genuinely good. We don't have to feel guilty. You talked about procrastination earlier, Kylie. Procrastination is when you're watching it and you should be working. Whereas if you are watching it and well, I have just done the work and now I've earned this, sit back and enjoy. Get yourself a beverage, get yourself some popcorn, enjoy the night.
That's it. And I've got a suggestion here. A lot of people find it difficult when it comes to rewarding themselves. So a suggestion is write a list of rewards out now, so that when you get to those opportunities or those milestones or those significant moments that happen, that you're not going, I don't even know what I'd do. It doesn't matter. I'll do that next time. Because so many people don't do that in our group coaching. If anyone doesn't celebrate their milestones along the way, we're onto them now. We're like, okay, so what are you going to do? When this block of land settles for someone recently, how did you celebrate? So we're all onto him. Like, how did you celebrate? We want to know. And we want you to share the way that you reward and celebrate yourself. So for some people, it's, having a coffee, it's being able to watch Netflix, it's buying a book that they've been wanting, it might be going to an event. For me, I love live music. I recently took myself to a concert that I wanted to see, so that was a reward. It may be that you have a weekend away and you go and, or you hire a car, like some special, if you're into cars, a luxurious car for the weekend, or, you know, really build your list of rewards out from just little things, like little acknowledgements to, hey, I'm seriously starting to achieve some goals right now. And what would be great ways for me to remember these milestones when I'm 5 years down the track and I've achieved all these great goals, and I look back and go, yeah, that was awesome. Remember when we had that weekend up at Noosa as a reward because we just settled on those first blocks of land. It was like so stressful getting there, and yeah, we did that. And then next time maybe went overseas. So there's a lot of value in rewarding yourself along the way. So make sure that you're doing that. I can't underestimate the value in that enough.
Absolutely. Now, we're just going to go and grab some questions from the audience. Before we do, I just want to tell everyone about other things in our community. So these Sunday sessions we do most Sundays at 5 p.m. Brisbane time. There is a back catalogue of a whole bunch of those that we have migrated over to YouTube. So if you are only just finding out about us right now, head on over to YouTube and you can then find us just by searching for Property Developer Network, or there is a link there, propdev.info/YouTube, and that will actually find us. We also run a couple of Facebook groups. We have our Property Developer Network community, where you can ask the community to help you on your journey, your different issues, challenges, etc. And the community will reach out and try and help you. We also have a sister group called Development Site Deal Hub, where we can transact off-market deals. Great place for all of that. And really pumped to also announce that our developer launchpad for this year is going to be on the 13th of March. So that's next Saturday, the 13th of March, between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. This is a free event. Now, for those of you who've been following me for some time, you would have noticed that I did one of these called The Perfect Storm 6 months ago. And at that point, I predicted that the market was going to shoot off like it has right now. So you'll know that the market is super hot at this moment in time. And I predicted that was going to happen. And I said 6 months ago that it was the perfect time to get in and start learning your journey in order to time the market to actually get that upswing right now. Now that we're in that, what I'm going to cover in the Developer Launchpad is, well, what's next? And what are you going to prepare for next? And now that you can see what's happening at the market, where's it going to go after that? Now, I don't have a crystal ball, but I've got some good insights in watching the drivers that are sitting underneath the covers that is pushing our economy forward. And sometimes it's pushing it back and sometimes it's pushing it forward. I'm going to give you some insights as to my take on the world and where I think that's going to go. So join me for Developer Launchpad, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Go to the link propdev.info/launchpad. Okay, that said, I am going to very quickly now jump over to Facebook and try and find all the questions that have been coming through from our community as we go. So let's see who we got out there. So Rachel says, very true, Kylie. Someone said that about my new waterfront apartment, that I'm lucky, but I've worked for it all my life. So there you go. You know, everyone says, oh, you're so lucky. But the reality is they don't see what sits under the covers.
Yeah, you've worked very hard to get there, Rachel.
Absolutely. A couple of people also saying hi, so I'm just going to say hi to everybody, and a couple calling out specifically to you, Kylie. So hi from Kylie. Okay. Peter says skydiving is the best thing I've ever done, but didn't have family support. So I think he's talking about one of his rewards there is skydiving. So for those of you who don't know, I've also done skydiving. I have got my skydiving ticket, and that was a reward for me about 12 months ago. Actually, it's a little bit more than that now. Spent an entire week, I guess, jumping out of planes. I think I did 12 jumps in 1 week. So super exhilarating to do that. And, you know, if that is a reward of yours, many people it would freak the living heck out of. So, but for me, that was my reward. So, and Peter, that was yours also. Okay, so John's got a comment to assimilate, and I'm not quite sure what that's in reference to. So a lot of people saying, well done, good stuff, thank you. So Lynn Hill says, love that, Kylie, stop looking through the rear vision mirror.
Such a powerful metaphor.
It's amazing how much we do it, isn't it, Kylie?
Yep, totally.
Yes. Ursula says the past has gone. It's the future we need to concentrate on. So there you 100%. Go. And the one thing I can promise you is we get one day closer to the grave every single day. So Peter says, appreciate your coaching, Kylie. So
thank you, Peter.
You some public affirmation. There's a few people, Peter's talking a lot about his skydiving, so I'll just let that go.
I've also skydived, just saying. That was when I was way younger. It wouldn't be a reward for me anymore. It would terrify me, but back when I was younger.
There you go.
Sorry, just add, sometimes your rewards can change. So what may be a reward or what may have been a reward, it may look different for you now based on the age and the stage of life you're at and all that kind of stuff. So you might go, hey, I used to love doing blah, 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 and now that doesn't really bring me a sense of joy anymore. It's a bit meh. And that's okay. Just find some new rewards, find some new goals and new hobbies.
Absolutely. So Felicity, clearly she's talking about the outsourcing and automation. Felicity is saying, Rob has Shelley. And absolutely, Felicity, I do have Shelley. And Shelley, I'm sure that you're out there watching. So I cannot be the man that I am without people like you in my life.
Man, if everyone had a Shelley,
yes, I know.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing.
I've got this one. That's all I need. Okay, so John says, what about if the plumber has gone for the day and I help dig the trenches, or the painter has gone for the day and I cut and roll a few walks, helping where I can, bringing the end date to near, and helping with unexpected costs from either. So John, you're making valuable points, mate. It's not about never getting involved in the deal and never getting hands-on. It's about making a conscious choice about at this moment in time, is my time better served progressing the current deal, or is it better served actually getting myself the next deal? And I think most of us don't take the time to just have that thought, okay? And if we can start looking and thinking a little bit more strategically and go, well, okay, well, you know, if I use your example, you know, help to dig the trench, well, that might take you 3 or 4 hours. What else could that 3 or 4 hours get you that might be served a little bit better and might be a little bit closer to finding you that next deal? So not saying never, just be very cautious of it. Kerry says, thank you, Rob and Kylie. Very insightful and helpful. Matt's giving lots of nice thoughts. So thank you, Matt. Very appreciated, mate. Andy's asking, is the 13th of March, can be watched online live as well? So yes, Andy, it is a online Zoom webinar for 4 hours. So it is only online. We're not doing that in any physical capacity. That is going to be completely Zoom based. And I'll preempt the next question is, will there be a recording? And the answer is no. You need to be there live on the day. And that's because I'm talking about the market and what's actually happening. And the market moves so quickly that anything that you watch historically is then going to lose a whole bunch of relevance. And so we make a very conscious effort to not release that on video. Andy says, since the property is quite hot now, do you think it's harder to find good deals? So Andy, right now, absolutely, but I'm going to cover that in a lot more detail rather than going into that now. I'm going to go into a lot more detail next Saturday. So hang on for that, mate, and I'll spend a good deal of that 4 hours talking about exactly that. Dan says, will I be able to watch Developer Launchpad after Saturday? I told you somebody would ask that question. So no, Dan will be the question. You will need to attend live, my friend. So unfortunately about that. John has reiterated his assimilate comment. So assimilate in sharing info. So well done, mate. Thank you. Andy says, it's still a good time to execute option deals during hot seller market like the current one. I think that's a question rather than a statement. Is it a good time? It's always a good time to do a deal if, and I say if, you know how to read the market, if you are a strategy expert and if you are an area expert, okay? If you are those three things, then you can make money in any market, up, down, or sideways. The problem is that I see people who are not strategy experts and they are not area experts. And so they don't understand the macro and the micro machinations that actually happen in and around the deal. And they think that just because the market's going up, that the outcome of the finished product will also go up. But they forget that time happens. And while your project is running, the market is changing. And so you need to be very, very aware of what is actually happening in your market to know how and what to do. Okay, so Sean says, Kylie getting younger. I think you're only 21.
Oh, so sweet, Sean.
And that's the end of our comments. A couple of thank yous. So thank you, folks, for hanging around for as long as you have. And thank you very much, Kylie, for coming and joining me on this Sunday afternoon. I'm kind of losing track of days.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Rob. And I love and appreciate all the comments, everybody. So thank you very much.
All good. So until next week, folks, we'll see you. Actually, my mistake. There is no Sunday session next week because I'm running Developer Launchpad and because I'm doing 4 hours a day before. Thought I'd give my voice a little bit of a rest. So see you on Saturday. So propdev.info/launchpad. We'll see you for the 4 hours and no Sunday session next week. Until then, folks, bye for now.
Bye.